Hi, this is Jim Wortham. Thanks for joining me again for us to get to know each other. Um, the thought for tonight is how many jobs it took me to find one that I liked. And this is particularly important if no matter what your age is. Um, if you don't like where you are, where are you going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Or if you're lucky enough to be 62 right now, go down to the Social Security office and apply for, I'm sorry, Social Security. If you're 62 or older, go there and apply for Social Security benefits. It'd be less than it would be if you're 66 or 67, but in the long run, will it matter? Um, if you were listening to one I did yesterday, the video about retired 62, I mentioned that my brother started at 62 drawing, and he lived to be 67. He thought about waiting till 67 or later, but you don't know when your last day is going to be. Not to sound pessimistic or forecast how many days we have left. I'm just telling the way it seems to occur. You never know how long you're going to be here. How many jobs did I have? How many jobs was I told I couldn't do? That I found out was bad advice. Well, first of all, uh, I was basically told I wasn't going to be much of a college student, and first year I had a F and D and grades to prove that they were right. How things ended up, and I've mentioned this before, so I won't mention it a whole lot right now. I almost went to the Vietnam War, joined the Army, rather than to go back to college. I don't know how many times I dropped out of classes in college. I don't have a record of it. I was so surprised, though, that I could find a college that would take me back, not take me back, but transfer me with the grades I had. And uh, I finished it. I want to share this with you because the worst advice can be the people at the top. And I wanted to be a psychologist. I was in Kentucky at the time, and I finally barely made it with a psychology major and also a sociology major. I made it in the daggone, that hair looks terrible. What can I do here? Does that look better? Let's do this. Okay. So definitely the hair looks better now. Anyhow, I remember taking my transcript to a major university, not a prestigious one by any nature, but one that could offer a PhD in psychology, clinical or counseling psychology. Basically, you can do the same with either one, but clinical has more with testing. Counseling has more with what we're doing now, just um, I was going to say socializing, problem solving, things like that. Not so much testing. Although in my master's program, which I was admitted to, in between that and trying to get into the doctoral program, um, I learned to test. I could give any test just about because we weren't going to get out of the classes till we learned to take the test and practice it with being observed with the person in front of me. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is that the stone wall, I hit the wall. After I got the master's degree, which took me a year or two longer than I had hoped it would, I went to a major university and told them I wanted to get in their PhD program, and they looked at my transcript. It's a list of all your classes and grades. I was proud of myself. It took me a lot of dropping out and starting over, and dropping out and starting over to finish, to get that far. And this guy looks at it and he says, "Were you thinking about applying at this university?" Oh, I smiled and said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Let me tell you something. We're not going to admit you, and no other university in the country will admit you." So then becomes a belief that the authority figure knows the answer, and didn't even occur to me to go and try anywhere else. So I did everything from. Do y'all remember Watkins Products selling vanilla extract door to door? Do you remember the Fuller Brush company where you sold bushes? I mean, things to clean the house. You ever remember Shackley Vitamin Company? All three is still going. Any of y'all ever think about anyone that asks you to join up with Amway? Well, I had a taste of all that. If your nature is not to be a salesperson, it's hard to make yourself into one. I share that because I tried to. Oh, what eventually happened was that some school needed a math teacher, and I had enough math credit hours to be considered enough to be a teacher. But I needed to go back to a college and pick up some more to be officially a certified or licensed math teacher, which I didn't care for math anyhow. It was just one of those things where, I did okay in general math and algebra and plane geometry and things like that. Never could pass calculus. Never did in my whole life. Never did pass analytic or geometry. Twice I tried. They tried to make me take both of those to get my minor, but somehow some kind person on the staff said let's substitute. Well, what can which one of these do you want to take? You need six more hours, which was 2 classes, 3 hours apiece. It said I like these 2 classes on elementary, teaching elementary math, elementary school math. I think if it doesn't make any difference what 6 hours I have, and that's 2 classes, I'd like to sign up for that, and I did, and I did get my minor in teaching. I was already licensed, but it was in psychology. But they weren't hiring anyone to teach psychology in most high schools then. And the people that were teaching psychology wasn't going to let go of their jobs. They had nowhere else to go. Well, speeding right along with this, the second year I taught at 2 different schools. The first was better than the second, but the second one told me basically you don't fit in here. That's putting it lightly. So we're not hiring you back. So what do you do then? Do you get a 6-pack or a 12-pack or a 24-pack of beer and think things through when you get home? And I ended up calling the next university, and they accepted me. And at that point, and I wasn't their best student either. It's not about memorizing and regurgitating it. It's about learning how that professor is going to teach and how he's going to word those exam questions. And do you process that exam question the way that he wants it answered? Well, let me just say at that school I dropped a few classes too. Retook them. Took extra years to finish it. I remember at the end, this one guy, one of the heads of the department, says good luck, and he says I hope you don't plan to work for yourself, or they call it private practice. I called it other things like I never called it private practice. I called it my private office. Come to my private office. Instead of putting diplomas and all that on the wall like normal people that are psychologists or clinical social workers or marriage and family therapists, and I was all of those. Once I started passing exams, I did well, and I got all these licenses, including school psychologists, which I never one day used the school psychologist license, but I had it. But I had to go to workshops, school to workshops, 40 hours every 2 years to renew your license. And I'll never forget this one comedian who was a psychologist. She says, they don't want to see all this stuff on your wall that means nothing to them. And we're talking about the degrees put in a fancy frame. She says, take those down. Put up some funny cartoons on all walls, all the walls. Put cartoons up. Then put your degrees in just a binder with those plastic see-through sheets where they could see the back and front. And you flipped it. You flipped it. It would maybe have a picture of your college or university. It would include your transcript. If you don't want your transcript in there, which I didn't, I had the degrees in there. And I'd set that where if I stepped out of the room to get a Coke or stop to the restroom or something, took a break, they could go through it and find out about me. I never told a person. I don't think I told a person other than one or two what I was licensed in, and those two were so concerned about their sister seeing someone that was qualified. I bought 2 practices from qualified PhD psychologists that were drug users and ended up in prison within the year after I bought their practices. They said they were selling out to go to take care of their sick parents. That wasn't a story, and everybody that knew the story, and there were a lot. We got Madison State Hospital here, King's Daughters Hospital here, and since none of them would hire him, he started his own private practices so he could do an internship, so-called internship. He put together a self-made, approved internship that we all had to do. I did one. I did mine at Our Lady of Peace in substance abuse. Why am I telling you all this? Because of the discouragement. I failed the psychology exam 2 times, took it the 3rd time after 3 years. It took me 3 or 4 years to become a psychologist once I finished graduate school. After that, I passed all exams for all licenses. Hey, what was the problem? How about the fact that all your life you've been told you can't do things? What if all your life people considered you a average student, but you'd never be able to get above a high school education? What do you do when you have an anxiety disorder that when they ask you questions, your mind shuts down? Well, enough for that. I worked for 2 agencies, 3 years each, and then went into working privately. Like I said, they call it private practice. I just say, you want to come to my office or place of business. And I did that for 30 years without even the first referral. I created my own referrals. And you say, how you do that? Well, I had one girl, one lady, that happened to be walking by on her last day at work at my second job that I had for 3 years. She says, I'm going into private practice. I said, well, I wish I could. I said, how you can get referrals? She says, what you do, contact every insurance company and every employee assistance program that businesses might have. Ask to fill out to be on their provider network. It took me a year. It took me a year to get on all the provider networks. When we talk about, I'll just name top five. You got Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield. You got Humana, Cigna, United Healthcare. What's that for? Give me five. Medicare. Got on all those networks. Plus, many, 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 many more, depending on how many were coming into the state of Indiana. I could only practice in Indiana because that's what my licenses were. They were in Kentucky initially, and that was all I could work, were people with benefits of insurance in Kentucky. Once I moved to Indiana, I had to have them all converted over to Indiana. Am I glad I had such a bad time? Dropping in and out of school, being told I couldn't make it, taking the state board 3 times, State Board of Psychology, being told that nobody would see me if I worked privately, except for one girl. Not girl, she was my age at the time. And as she was walking out, and I tell you, wish I knew her name, but she recognized me and said, it's my last day. She told me the secret. The secret was not beating on doors. It wasn't putting up ads. It was getting on all the networks of insurance companies and employee assistance programs. After that, I did do a few things like send letters out to doctors and got sort of bombarded with clients that were difficult. When I say difficult, it could have underlying difficult problems of certain substance abuse that they did not share with their doctor. That was the biggie. That's what I saw the most people in, was substance abuse treatment. So I'm sharing that with you. I'm retired now, and I know this is all about myself. I was just looking at a video that said if you want people to watch your videos, don't talk about yourself. So, since I made a commitment to try to make a video every night, or at least 3 to 5 times a week, I broke all the rules. I talked about myself. But there's a reason for that. I failed upward. If you've been failing downward, you can turn it around and fail upward. And when I say fail upward, even though you're making D's and F's and bad reviews, you keep going. You keep going. You keep going. Even during the 3 or 4 years from when I failed the psychology test to when I passed it, I kept going. I kept believing one day things will turn around for me. And they did. And if I wanted to, at my age now, I could have the same size practice I had before, which I would not want to work those number of days or hours. But I'm just telling you, you can do this. That's all this video's about, even though I told what I did only because you can do it too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back in touch here in another few days, if not tomorrow. Take care now.